Hi, Nick Tuckert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Well, folks, before we get into what's going on, I wanted to do a bit of a flashback. In a couple weeks, we will be showing our first honed in HDPE contest, where members of the guild will be submitting their creations all under the same basic conditions to see who can make the best, most practical, most aesthetically pleasing training weapon. And I'm doing this in part to encourage people to modify and make their own gear, in part to show you, the viewers, that there are extreme low-cost options for those looking to have training gear and can't and believe they can't afford it otherwise. But before we do that, I want to do a sort of reminder of some of the stuff that I produced last year that's proving the inspiration for this contest. Now, my stuff was done out of 3/8 inch HDPE. It was all done out of a single cutting board. I actually have videos that I can put the links below on, the techniques I used. It's very, very simple as a reminder both for the guildies and for you guys at home. So we're going to start with, what I made. One of the first ones I made and one I was very proud of is this. Now, this was actually made of, scrap portions, but was one of the most important trainers I think I've ever made, because to the best of my knowledge, I've yet to see a good cooking or chef's knife fighter trainer. What I mean is people, buy trainers that, Cold Steel is wonderful for making a line of trainers that match their actual knives. Purple Heart is wonderful for making low-cost, simple trainers that match specific weapons, but very few are of what I consider utility. What this represents relatively safely, which is why it's mostly rounded off, is a kitchen knife. This allows you to train under the most common arming yourself with an edged scenario weapon that people come across, being they've heard a bump at night, something's gone wrong, they're in their house. Well, the first things people grab is a kitchen knife, but they don't think to train with a kitchen knife. So I made one. Now, after I made the kitchen knife, I made this, which is actually modeled very loosely. Again, it's got scrap and a slight damage, which is okay. This is me learning how to do this. This is based on a medium throwing knife. Because again, a lot of us sword and knife guys carry throwing knives. We throw knives, but we don't think of how they handle for a fighting purpose. This gives you it's a very familiar line for reasons of both the necessary pattern and to avoid lawsuits. It doesn't quite match the incredibly popular version of single-edged throwing knives, but I think everybody should be able to figure out roughly what this is meant to be like. So we'll put that. This is a simple dagger. This is a simple... The guard's a little long, but I want to make sure there was room for a lacrosse glove or, proper gaunt for the people who can afford it. And again, it has flaws, but this is my first try. Solid rounded cross piece. It has a nice taper. It flows surprisingly well. And this is a fairly common size you find in short swords, in daggers of blade. And it works. It works reasonably well. I consider this a success in that it functions. I consider it a little ugly because I'm a perfectionist. But again, first tries. And looking at this pattern, it's funny. I was discussing with folks, and this is almost identical to something that was handed to me. We talked about it, and something else might be coming out of that. So watch to see if you know what I'm talking about. Now, the other options I have to show pretty much simultaneous, because these are my dussocks. I love the concept of dussocks. I love the history of dussocks. I wanted some short, because that's what fit in the original criteria. I wanted something with a bit of a hand guard. It was a challenging design, but I kept the simplicity. I could have rounded off the pommels, but anybody who knows us knows we love pommel parries. And actually, for the two-handed, for the guys who like to flow, these work really well. And you'll notice a trait. I'm giving this as a bit of a spoiler for last minute for folks looking to make your own. There aren't hard right angles. You don't see a straight chop because that's very weak. It's very hard for the plastic to hold up. And that makes a fault. So what you end up doing, if you want to make them at home, and this is again me giving a tip to the guildies who watch it, because we're coming up, we're a couple weeks out, and I have projects I want to get done. I haven't been able to because of the move. We'll just see what's on the block. But I will tell you, rounding your edges may save the quality tests. So these are all homemade. This whole thing, I honestly can't remember. I know it was well less than $20. I want to say it was like a $12 cutting board. I'd have to look at my old video to see because I just don't remember with the move and everything. But if I can make a small arsenal of training weapons, you can. The idea being, eventually you take the knife you're using, which in this case I pulled my Bar-Raz Damascus knife. You roughly trace it in cutting board. You cut it out. You now have a trainer that matches your EDC. I can't stress how important being able to vaguely to train with what you handle is. You want your trainer to match as close as possible. But you also realistically want it to be as inexpensive as possible. You want it to be as, good quality. And that balance is what this contest is going to be about. So this is some notes for the HDPE. I hope you guys honed an HDPE contest. That should be showing up at the end of the month or just after. I'm Nick Tucker. If you like what I'm doing, please like, share, subscribe. Comment down below, especially if you have trainers you want to see. So keep practicing, keep your guard up, and as always, support your local swordmaster.